I'll tell you what, one for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all, man. What a rough day. Actually, a rough week. But anyway, before we get into the rants and all the other things going on, let's say hi to everybody. So it looks like Nashville Steve 42, or actually Spike Man, because remember, because of OBS, this is all messed up. Spike Man was the first one in, and he gets the cookie. So congrats, Spike Man. Good to see you, Thomas. Enjoy that cookie. And who came in after that? It looks like Tom Grassi came in second, so he gets the half cookie. Tom, good to see you here, and enjoy that half cookie. Yeah, after that, we got Chuck Schreiber. How you doing, Chuck? Good to see you here. Ray Bertelson. Hey, Ray. Good to see you. Sorry I never got back to you. I got your message, and then I got sidetracked and completely forgot about you. And I'll give you a call probably sometime tomorrow. Let's see who else we got here. We got Hot Dog Pilot Andy. Hey, Andy, good to see you. We also have Dundas Junction Model Railroad. James, good to see you here. And who else? Is that it? Yep, that's it. All right, pretty good. So let me tell you what happened. First off, the day was kind of screwed up anyway. My wife, I had to take her to the eye doctor. You know, she's got bad cataract, so finally she's going to get them taken care of. But I had to take her in today to get the evaluation done. Didn't get back here till 3 o'clock. So I ran back over here, tried to get things set up. I had everything working perfectly. Trains were running flawlessly. OBS was set up. I got everything tied in that I need to. So I shut it all down. Well, except for OBS, I leave that running. But I shut the trains down. Probably my first mistake. And went next door to get some dinner. By now it's a little after 4 o'clock. Made my dinner. I made us our dinner, actually, sort of. And then came back over here. It was about 5:15. So rather than double checking everything, I was watching a couple of YouTube videos. Well, 25 till 6, I said, I better get the trains running. So I fire up the trains. The two ES44s are not running. Well, one is, but the other one isn't, so it couldn't pull them. You know, I've got them consisted. So I unconsisted them, reconsisted them. Can't talk. Still could only get one running. I don't know what the hell is going on. So if I screw it, not going to happen. So I got the other one going. You know, the bloody nose. Southern Pacific, whatever it is. It keeps derailing on the track right over here. I said, that's it. This is a sign from God. No trains today. So I shut them down. Now, it was just as well anyway. Let me show you something. This would have been the train screen. And you'll see there's only 3 cameras because the 4th one couldn't find it. It's just not there. I don't know what the hell's going on here. It's probably OBS, but at that point it was too late to switch over to, well, it wouldn't have mattered, to switch over to StreamYard. Plus, I didn't have anything ready on StreamYard anyway. I'd have to change out the intro and the outro, add in the other pictures and stuff. It just would have been a pain in the ass. I said, all right, fine, screw it. So here we are. And I don't know how I'm coming through here because I'm in the green right now, but I did do a speed check. I got 39 going up, which is good, but only got 94 coming down. Not good. Should be around 900 and some. Of course, they're attributing that to the so-called solar flare that supposedly hit the Earth yesterday. And I guess it messed up some of the satellites or something. I don't know. So anyway, here we are. we are somewhat up and running. The things on OBS at least are working so far. So we're going to go with that. Now, many of you probably saw my short where I did the mail call for the Tsunami 2 decoder. And the Keep Alive or Current Keeper. I like Keep Alive better. I don't know why it sounds better. So I got those two in, made a short, told you I was going to produce a video, a how-to video on how to put all this shit in the Amtrak P42. Well, that didn't happen because Tom says, Jim, my satellites are still working fine here. Well, the satellites might be working, I don't know. But something's going on because Comcast should not be this slow. It never has been before. So, anyway. So I put the decoder in. I want to test it out before I put the Keep Alive in. So I put it on the track. I didn't do any programming at all. I figured I'll just leave it as is. Fired it up. Well, all lighting works. It moves back and forth, but no sound. And I'm thinking, well, what the fuck? Well, now I'm going to show you something. Before I go in, here's a parts breakdown. And you'll see, well, I don't know how well you can see that. You look right in the left side of the page. There's a round circle thing there. That's a speaker. It's numbered 114. It shows two of them that should be in the locomotive. Now, apparently it's not, because when I went ahead and pulled the housings, well, they're empty. So apparently you don't get speakers with it. The speakers were probably there in case you had the DCC with sound set up. But it doesn't specify one way or the other. So after screwing around with this thing for about 3 hours, I mean, I put it back on the programming track. I'm trying to reprogram everything. Pulled all the sound bars up. Still nothing. So finally I said, you know what? There's got to be a... And it looked like there were speakers were hooked up because there's two black wires on each side. Which I don't know why they would use black wires, but because usually it's green and red, I think, or red and black. But it looked like they were going right into the speaker enclosure, so I assumed they were there. If I said, screw it, let me take one of these enclosures off and see if there's anything under it. Of course there's not. Yeah, sometimes you just can't win. So anyway, I ordered 2 speakers from Amazon so I can get them a little quicker. They'll be here Saturday. Possibly tomorrow. They're en route now. I know Thomas said that I should have went to... I can't remember the name of the company now. They have better stuff. It's... I can't remember that. Something Sound. And I probably could have got them, but it would have probably took a week to get them, and I didn't want to wait that long. Speaker wires are purple, both wires. All right, well, some may be. That's possible. Thomas says, Jim, you bought an A-turn DCC equipped that doesn't come with, well, obviously. Yeah, scale sound speakers, that's what I was thinking of. I know about the company, and they do have superior speakers, but, you know, I didn't want to wait that long. So, if these work fine, they're good. If not, I'll put in an order for the scale sound ones afterwards. These things were really inexpensive. I think I paid like under $10 for a pair of them. They're 28 millimeter round. So, you know, I gotta figure out how bad can they sound, right? And I probably got a couple floating around here because I think the MTHs have bigger speakers because they had round ones in the bottom of the chassis. In the center of the center bottom of the chassis that were round. And I generally don't throw stuff like that away, so I probably got them packed away in a drawer somewhere. But Dundas Junction, James says Rapido DCC ready, comes with speaker. Well, they should. I mean, it's not really ready if the speakers aren't there, are they? You know, and I looked at like I said, this is the only instruction sheet that comes with it. Well, if you want to call it instructions, basically a breakdown. And on the back there's the numbered components. And nowhere on here does it say that the speakers are not included. But apparently they're not. So, You know, well, you learn something new every day, right? And that's probably what I get for assuming anyway. And had I known that, I would have ordered a pair from Scale Sound Systems back when I ordered the decoder. And they would have came in right about the same time. What the hell are you going to do, right? So I got this thing apart, and let me see if I can see what's the best way to look at this. Put that up there. Go to this one here. There we go. And that's kind of far away, but yeah, I got the chassis and the foam cradle. I've got the body off and all the wires are untied and everything else. So, because I was thinking at one point that maybe I'd have to buy a decoder buddy. Then I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make sense because they wouldn't make it like that if you had to put a decoder buddy in. So all I got to do is figure out where the speaker wires need to go. Probably on the sides here. And they're marked on the board, so I'll just have to look for them. But so we'll get that going. Hopefully Saturday, and then I'll finish. I'll actually do the how-to. Now, Crooked Dave. Hey Gerald, how you doing? Good to see you here. Crooked Dave. Hey Chasco, how you doing too? Hey, got everybody coming in here. Anybody else pop in there that I didn't know? No. Crooked Dave, he sent me a link to a video directly from Soundtracks. So I went to the Soundtracks site and I couldn't even find anything that was worth the shit. I'll do that, Tom. So anyway, he sent me a video that tells you how to put it in. Now the NMRA standards for a 21-pin decoder are the same across all the motherboards that have the 21-pin decoder pins. So now I know which pins I've got to hit to wire in the keep alive. The only problem I might have with this, well, it's not really a problem. I did find a place to mount it. It's going to be tight. And once again, I should have got the really smaller one. Same price and all, but the documentation said that this one would work. Once again, somebody doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, you know. Like I said, I'll make it work. It's not a big deal. So, but I'm going to do a video on that, showing you where I got to solder the points. I'll show you the actual soldering job that I'll be doing, and we'll go through the whole thing beginning to end. I'm not going to videotape the programming because I'm going to get Tom Grassi to help me with that. He has more experience with the Tsunami 2 than I do. And he knows all the tricks with the CVs. So I'll work with him on that. It'd be easier to do, you know, if we're not live. James says, I don't normally get DCC ready. Well, probably not, but it's cheaper. A lot cheaper. Now I could have got the same locomotive that was DCC and sound included for about $175 more than what I paid. Now I got the decoder for $98. Well, actually $105 after shipping costs. There was no tax on it for some reason. It came out of Texas. And the Keep Alive, that was actually more expensive than I thought it should be. It was $29, but they charged me $10 in change of shipping, plus sales tax. That came from New York. So I wound up spending $40 on that. But like I said, you don't get the Keep Alive Recurrent Keeper when you get a DCC and sound ready locomotive. So I would have still had to spend the $40 extra on top of the $175. I mean, I would have wound up having a ton of money tied up in this thing, and I'm trying to save money, not blow it. So that's how that works. But Scale Train CSX. Yeah, but see, they don't have a P42, Thomas, so I needed a P42 for the the elevated railway system, and that's why I had to do this. And I got a hell of a deal on the loco. So, and I'll tell you what, realistically, I will never buy a DCC sound equipped locomotive ever again. I'll get a DCC ready one. I'll put my own decoder in, my own keep alive, and I'll still save money over what they want to charge for everything included. And not a lot of things have a Tsunami 2 in them, especially scale trains. They use the ESU decoders, which they're okay, but not what I would consider a high-end decoder. I mean, the Tsunami 2 has a ton of different things in it, you know. I mean, it does everything. You got 28 functions. The function assignments are pretty cool. You got headlight, backup light, which is FO. F1 is the bell, 2 is the air horn, 3 is a short air horn, 4 is a dynamic brake, 5 and 6 are RPMs up and down for the engine. F7 is a dimmer, F8 mutes the whole thing. F9 is a grade crossing signal. F10 goes straight to 8. F11 is independent train brake. F12 is brake select train line charge. F13 is couple and uncouple noise. F14 is a switching mode. F15 is the handbrake. F16 is the HEP mode, which Tom Grassi knows more about that than I do. I'm sure he'll guide me through. F17 is the fuel loading. F18 is general service. F19 is straight to idle. F21 is sander valve. F22 is cab chatter, which is cool. F23 is the all aboard call, if you're pulling, which will be handy for the, the Amtrak train. Then you got 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 are effects function outputs. Not sure what they're for yet. And then there's 40 plus air horns you could choose from, and I think there's 20 plus what do you call it? Damn it. Engine sounds. That's not the word I was looking for, but I couldn't remember it offhand. So all the ways around, for $98, you can't go wrong. Yeah, I know, James. That's what you were saying, that you can't really get the Tsunami 2s up in Canada. Well, that's your loss. I mean, you get what you get, but it's fine. But if you really want to get something with a lot of features, the Tsunami 2 is the way to go. So in the meantime, I got a big mess on my desk, which is fine. So we'll get that straightened out, and then I can get it up on the track. And of course, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. Well, for now, I can use it. The DCC is hooked up to the above rails, the elevated rail system. But when I get the is it the Train Man? It's called the Train Man, the auto reverser. I have to isolate that from the rest of the layout. And that'll probably be happening probably January. I'll get the Train Man thing. I think it's called the Train Man. Never remember. Hey, Derek Alexander. How you doing, Derek? Good to see you here. So, Thomas wants to know, Jim, can you make a Tyco DCC in sound? Probably. But I'm not really interested in doing that. Motorman, that's what it is. I don't know why I keep thinking the other one. The Motorman I gotta get. That's $130. At least they're back in stock. Because for a while there they were out of stock, and I'm thinking, well, this sucks. And I didn't want to have to make one with Arduino because this is so much easier. So, excuse me. So that's probably, like I said, probably won't happen until January. It depends, Now, my wife's going through this cataract surgery. Of course, I'm going to try and help her as much as I can financially. And of course, I have to get my taxes together for the property taxes. I've only got till I think March, the end of March to pay them. So I got to get that thing going too. James says, Jim, I don't install decoders. Mine should prefer. Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you got a guy doing it or you're buying them already put together, chances are you're going to have an ESU in there. And it's even here in the States the same way. It said Scale Trains uses ESU. I don't know what Athearn uses because I've never bought an Athearn that was already had the DCC and sound in it. But or Atlas or any of the other ones actually. I'm pretty sure Bachmann uses probably an ESU. You know. So it is what it is, but so I was looking to see if anybody new popped in. Not yet though. So that's where I'm at with that, and it's like I said, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but you know, and like I said, a lot of the stuff at the moment is kind of new to me. So, you know, I'm not a big expert on any of this shit. Alright, James is after the soundtracks too, so. Like I said, I'm not sure who uses what, but I still like the idea of putting it in myself because this way I'm not paying somebody to labor to install it, which, you know, realistically is a. If the speaker's already in the thing, that's a 20-second job, you know. Plug in the decoder, you're ready to rock and roll. I mean, you'd have to, you know. And usually, the end user does all the programming anyway. So, Atlas is ESU. I figured as much. So, like I said, you know, it's to me, it's like a car. I think the train companies ought to offer on a DCC ready or DCC equipped, they should offer you different choices for what you want for a sound decoder. You know, what if you want to, I like Scale Trains to some degree, but they don't offer Tsunami 2. Why not? If they did, I'd be more inclined to buy one ready to go, even though they're kind of expensive. But, you know, it's I guess it's neither here nor there. It's all personal preference, but Atlas HO scale is more expensive. Is it? I don't know what the prices are on them. Like I said, I like the Athearn. So, you know, like I said, at first I liked the Scale Trains, and I still do. But there's a serious flaw in Scale Trains, and that's on their trucks. I explained that last week and a few times before, and that's why I will probably never buy another one. But, matter of fact, I never even looked at the bottom of this. How are these put together? Yeah, I can't really tell how these come apart or not. They look like the bottoms pop right off. They're snap in, and you can get to the gear sets. If that's the case, that's fine. So, I don't care what brand they are, I just run trains. Well, yeah, I can see that, but, you know, there are little nuances between the different brands. Some may be more detailed than the other. Some may be built better than the other. And I'm trying to find something that's built well, looks good, and is reasonably priced. I know I'm asking for the moon here, but that's kind of what I look at, though, you know. And like I said, I'm not afraid to do electronics. To me, it's not that big of a deal. And once I do this the first time, I'll remember how to do it forever. So the first time, well, actually, well, not even really the first time, because I put a Tsunami 2 in the Scale Trains engine up there, the SD45. The only thing is, I didn't use a decoder buddy in there, or whatever the hell they're called. And as I learned quite by accident on the MTH, because I did the same thing with that, I put a Tsunami 2 in that. And when I hooked up the lights, I blew them all out because the decoder itself doesn't reduce the voltage for the LEDs. I won't make the same mistake on the scale trains SD40, you know. So it's like, yeah, I'll just I have the resistors, and probably after I get this one done, I'll start working on that, get it buttoned up, and get it on the layout. So, and also I want to put a current keeper in everything I have, because trains without the current keeper don't work well. My track's just not that good, I guess. There's, you know, little spots here and there where, and even a tiniest interruption will kick the sound off for a second, and it just ruins the whole experience, you know. Spikeman Thomas says, Jim, you need a Lionel HO Polar Express train on your layout for Christmas. Yeah, that ain't happening, Thomas. I have the BLI steamer, not a Polar Express by any stretch. And I may run that if I do a Christmas video, and I'm not sure if I'm going to or not or yet. I did one last year. I don't know if I'll do one this year. Well, we'll see. Derek says, what's wrong with the scale train's wheel sets? Well, the problem is when you have to service them, and you do. And if you ain't going to be smart, and I suppose you could do that too, though. Drill a hole in the side of the trucks or even in the bottom. A tiny, tiny hole where you could push a needle oiler in there. They need to be, you know, lubricated every now and then. You can't take them apart easily. You have to literally disassemble the whole locomotive to get the truck out, which means cutting the wires. And then you have to be very, very carefully remove the sides of the truck. 9 times out of 10, you're going to break the clips on it, and you'll have to buy new ones. And then and only then can you separate the case to get to the gears. And what happened to me is I had it's an SD60, I think. And it was an undecorated one that I did up myself, my own paint scheme. And hey, Deep Run Mike, Robert, how you doing? Good to see you here. Actually, that's not a bad price, Thomas. Is that for 2 speakers or for each one? That's for each one. It's kind of expensive. Because they said I got 2 for $9. Yeah, but we'll see. Anyway. What was I talking about? Shit. Oh yeah, so I don't know what happened. I don't know if it derailed or whatever on the track, but by the time I got to it, the wheels melted off the axles. It completely destroyed the truck, you know. Just like it was on the front. Now the thing is, I bought that brand new probably about 5 years ago. It sat in a box till I got this layout built. So in reality, I probably only had a couple hours on it. I called Scale Trains to see if they would warranty the truck, and they said, no, that's not our problem, you're out of warranty. Warranty's only good for 3 years. I said, but, you know, I understand their point of view, but, you know, the fact that it sat in the box for like 4 years, yeah, that's crazy. Oh, that's for 2 speakers. Good deal. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I did, Gerald. That was pretty good. I was going to play it back tonight, but I didn't have time to load it up. So I got your video you sent me today, though, on the soldering. We're gonna run that in a little while. Pretty good for an 11-minute video. So that kind of pissed me off, even though, like I said, I kind of understand their point of view. Of course, they said I had a short, and that's what fried the truck, and I'm going, well, wait a minute. My Digitrack has built-in short protection. So if there was a short would have occurred, it would have immediately cut the power to the tracks. I know because it's happened before. So whatever the problem was, it was probably on them. And like I said, one of the big problems, I think it was Gerald pointed out on the ES44, and it went away on its own, I don't know how, but he said he heard a high-pitched squeal that was coming off, it sounded like it was coming off the trucks. And that was why I was going to go ahead and tear them down, re-lube them, and I found out that you really can't do that. And to me, that's a stupid way to build something. So, like I said, Athearn, Atlas, Bachmann, I think all the companies, I'm pretty sure, ones I've seen, have either one or two screws on a bottom plate at the bottom of the truck that you can remove the screws, remove that cover, there's your gear sets. So you can clean it out, re-lube it, or replace gears, whatever you need to do. Now, Scale Trains wants $50 for a pair of trucks, which is not unusual. It's not really that crazy, but I went to another company that sold Athearn trucks, which I can adapt to the Scale Trains. Same pair for $50, except that you can service them. So that's the problem with the wheel sets or trucks. And I did write a letter to Scale Trains, never heard anything back, so I'm thinking they probably told me to go fuck myself, you know. I mean, they know what they're doing. It's like, when I worked in the golf course, we had a lot of problems with certain things on certain equipment. And I got tired of replacing parts constantly because there was a poor design. So I looked at it, so I can fix that. So I did. I modified it using their parts, and it was 100 times better than have to replace them anymore. So instead of using like a brass bushing for a throttle pedal on a sand trap machine, I used a sealed bearing on one of the reels, which was the same physical size, made a block for it, bolted up underneath the floor pan, and it was already threaded so I could screw the pedal right onto it, and it worked beautifully, and the whole time I was there, I never had to replace another one because it was a sealed unit. Why would you have open bronze in the sand? You know, they did it that way because a lot of the golf courses will ship the mowers back or the machines back to Toro and say, hey, can you fix this? And of course they make a ton of money on it. Now we didn't do that. That's why I was there. I was the equipment manager. I had two mechanics under me, and we repaired everything that went wrong. And that was just one of the modifications I made on one piece of equipment. I made a few others too. Well, I sent my plans and my design up to Toro in Minnesota and never heard a word back. So we went up there, I think 2 or 3 years later for a seminar, and I got to talking to one of the what do you call them, the engineers, architects, whatever you call them. And I says, hey, look, I sent you the plans to fix these. Why aren't you doing it? Well, we know what we're doing. Probably we know a lot more than you do. I said, no, the only thing you know is how to make shit fall apart so you can make more money on it. But it's not helping your reputation. I found a fix, and I said, consequently, everybody within our corporation, which was, I can't remember now, but we owned like 30 or 40 golf courses around the country. And I sent it to each one of the mechanics, showed them how to repair these things. They were all thankful as shit. Of course, I'm sure Toro wasn't too fucking happy about that, but hey, you know, life's a bitch. But this is the problem. They don't build shit that's actually usable and lasts, and they don't make it easy to fix. So the original bronze bushing that was in there, you had to cut the bracket underneath the floor to remove it because it was impossible to get out otherwise. Replace the bushing and put the tab back up and re-weld it. Why in the hell would you do something like that, you know? So, you must have been a Ford engineer. You're probably right, Derek. And like I said, I'm no slouch when it comes to fixing shit. And that's what I've done all my life. I find things that I think is wrong and I correct them. You know, but then again, I look at, from my perspective, do I want to keep repairing a part over and over again that's substandard or just plain stupid? And I did with a lot of the Ford cars, these Ford engineers. My dad had a 1973 Ford Gran Torino wagon. That was one of the first ones that came up with that ignition box. And they mounted it on the plastic fender right next to the exhaust. and that controlled your spark, to your distributor. Well, what would happen is the vibration and the heat would kill them real quick. At the time, they were like $300 to replace them because his went bad, and I said, "Well, this is bullshit." I went to Ford, and I was like, "Jesus Christ." Anyway, I bought another one for him, and he said, "Well, we're not going to do this again." I mounted it on the firewall behind the fans were the fans were the front, but the air blew against it where I mounted it and actually helped keep it cool. There was very little vibration on the firewall. That was the last part that I put in the car, for that ignition module. Well, now you can buy them for $20, but if any of the cars are even still around. And it's like, why would you mount it there? The two biggest killers of electronics is heat and vibration. So where do they mount it? Where the most vibration was, and like it's literally 6 inches away from the exhaust manifold, you're getting all the ambient heat off of it. I mean, how fucking stupid can you be? Oh, you're right, Ray. It's planned obsolescence. And Thomas says I installed electric train whistle, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So, Derek said, Crown Vic, they ran AC pipe and filter and wires under the intake. Yeah, I know, that is crazy. I remember those. The newer ones don't have that problem, but the older ones did. Like I said, I have a Grand Marquis at 204. Although there's some stupid things in that too. Now, here's another one, right? The high-speed blower, fan blower motor switch. There's a relay on the firewall that controls that. When it goes out, you don't have any control over the fan speed for your air conditioner. I think it runs either automatically low or I think it was automatically low. So I went to the parts store. It was like a $15 part, no big deal. Where they put this fucking thing, I had to remove some of the vacuum motor devices that were under the hood. It was right behind the EGR pipe going to the exhaust. I moved it, of course, because I said what should have been literally a 3-minute job, one screw holding it in, an 8mm bolt screw. It should have literally took a couple minutes to pull it out, pop in a new one, screw it back on. Well, I moved it over like 3 inches. Now it's out in the open. And I think because it's not next to that EGR pipe, it's not getting killed with heat. Once again, I got to fix everything these idiots do, And there's other stupid things they do. The heater quit in my car a long time ago. Now, the second owner, my dad was the original owner, I got the car with 13,000 miles on it back in 2010. He hardly ever drove the damn thing. And he didn't really need the heat in Naples, Florida. So I don't think he used it much. Well, they have an electromechanical servo up under the dash that moves the heater door open and closed. Fortunately, mine went with the heater door closed, because otherwise I wouldn't have had no air conditioning. All I would have got was heat. But it's stuck in the closed position. It's a $30 module, but here's the problem. You got to remove the whole damn dashboard to get to it. Now, I did find a workaround, and it would have to, modify it a little bit, but why would you put something like that there knowing it's going to go bad? And it's a common problem on those cars. This is what I'm saying. The stupidity, well, actually, it's genius, really, but not for us, the end user not helping us any. It's nuts. What about a Jaguar? Well, I worked on a few Jaguars, too. I had one guy, it was an 86 two-door coupe with the V12 in it. When you opened the hood on that thing, all you saw was engine. And I did a brake job on that one, too, the rear brakes. That was a $1,300 brake job, and this was back in the 80s. And it's an 11-hour job. I did it a little bit quicker than that because I cheated. But they're, once again, they're nightmares to work on. I would never own a Jaguar. They're beautiful cars. They're actually pretty quick. They'll do 160 mile an hour. Not real quick, but they'll do it. I had one. It was an '85. It was a 4-door Jag, and it had the straight six in it, and it had just as much power as a V12. Matter of fact, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. The six got a little bit better mileage, not much, because the thing was the V12 had pistons about this big around them. They were a little bit bigger, but not much. Where the six-cylinder had huge pistons in them. So displacement-wise, they weren't too far apart. But the guy was complaining about some drivability. He said, take it down to 75, run the shit out of it, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I took it on 75, and I did, 150 in it. And it ran flawlessly. So, I turned around and come back, and that's when it started acting up. Well, it turned out that it was a bad distributor in it. And so I wound up replacing the distributor cap, and we're good to go. Like I said, the 6 was easy to work on. The 12, that thing was a nightmare. It looked impressive, but realistically, it would have been a son of a bitch to work on. And the thing with a Jag is, like most English cars really, it had a bastardized Ford engine in it, a Chrysler transmission, General Motors braking system, and General Motors air conditioners. They didn't really make anything of their own. Now, the electrical system was Bosch in those, and I don't have much good to say about Bosch components. Those cars had a lot of wiring problems, always, constantly. That's why I said I would never own one. Now, the one guy with the V12, he says, because they both these cars were bought used, and they got them really cheap, and there's a reason why, of course. They were beautiful cars. I mean, they were spotless interior and exterior. No scratches, no dents, beautiful paint. Interior was clean, everything worked well most of the time. And he says, I heard that they make a Chevy V8 conversion kit for this. He says, can you put one in? Oh, fuck yeah, I can do it, Well, by the time he figured out he wanted to do it, I'd already shut the shop down. It was like a year later, and I just figured he wasn't going to do it, That would have been nice to do, though. Yeah, they put V12s in the Jaguar. That was the common motor in most of them. Gerald says cars only need to last past the warranty. That's the truth of it, too, man. 1953 XK1. Yeah, I'll bet that must have been fun. I had one of my customers that I painted for. He bought an old Jag. I don't remember what year it was. It was maybe a 62, 63 XKE. He bought it in a junkyard. It was a total wreck. He spent like 8 years, rebuilding it. He's just about done with it. Man, that car was beautiful. But I still wouldn't own it. Hey, Ray Central, how you doing, Ray? Just got here, of course. Yes, I do, Thomas, and I'm working on it. I should have it done, hopefully, in a couple of days. It's been a challenge, but you'll like it when you get it. I hope. James, that's because you're a classic. Yeah, right. So you just have to wait for that one. I'll let you know when it mails out. I'm not going to tell you what it is because, that would ruin the surprise. So you'll just have to wait and see. And like I said, I find this true in everything, There's always something about something that they could have done a better job at, But I understand that it's at the end of the day, it's all about money. So, like I was saying, going back to my wife and her cataract surgery, it's not going to be cheap, even though she has insurance. There's pretty hefty co-pays on there. Hey, Trackside Mike, how you doing, Mike? Good to see you here. So I'm going to try and help her as much as I can financially. Plus, like I said, property taxes will be due soon. Well, they're technically due now, but I got till March to pay them. And of course, my property taxes went up by $200. So instead of paying $1,200, now I'm paying $1,400. I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is. So that means I've got to devote a lot of my income into getting that put together in time to pay it off. So, it's going to be a rough next couple of months, really, I think. Like I said, she's going to try and get the bad eye, the one she's nearly blinded, done next month. And then next year, January, she'll try and do the second one. Like you said, it'll all come down to how much this is going to cost. When I had mine done 6 years ago, I had them done down in Naples. And, I was on the impression that I was only going to have to pay 20%. Well, that 20% turned in, and I think I wound up paying like almost $1,500 out of pocket. Which to me, the good thing was they let me pay on time. I gave them money every month till it was paid off. They normally don't do that. You don't pay them up front, they don't do the job because, they can't undo what they did to you. But this guy was really good. He did a great job. And, these are readers here. I don't need them for distance, but that was the choice. Do you want to see close or do you want to see far? I wore glasses most of my life, for seeing far. And I said, no, I'd like to be able to see far without these fucking things in front of me, Looking back at it, I don't know if that was a brilliant idea or not, because in my old age, I need everything up front. But Mike says, I wish mine was that cheap. Why, you get yours done too? Moved to Newfoundland, taxes and Summit. Oh, okay. Less than $1,000. Yeah, property tax wise, yeah, it's crazy. Short answer, Thomas, no. This is the last thing I'm printing for you. At least for a while, anyway. I got to take time to get my stuff done. I'm spending way too much on yours. So, ask me again in about 6 months. I'll probably be ready to do it for you. But not before then. Yeah, property taxes are getting outraged. They're still cheap here. It's $1,400. But the thing is, I got an email the other day from, I don't remember what company it was, but they do property values. And they claim, now I paid $172,000 for this whole thing. That's the main house, the guest house, and I'm almost on 1.8 acres of land. Which was a really good price for me because, I sold the old house, which was 2,000 square foot. This one's, the living area is 3,500 square foot if you include the guest house. It's a bigger place than what I had. Plus I have a 2-car garage, which I didn't have in Naples. And of course I put this shed in afterward. This was another $8,200. But I paid $172,000 for the house. That was 5 years ago. So this company claims that my house, and I know they're full of shit, they claim I can get $391 for this place. And I'm going, right, no fucking way in hell. But that would explain why my taxes went through the roof. Well, for me anyway. It ain't right. So, our governor's trying to supposedly, and I say that with, a grain of sand or grain of salt, whatever, supposed to be getting rid of property taxes in Florida. But that isn't going to happen until 2027 or 2028 because there's a whole rigmarole he's got to go through to get it done. And of course, 26 is his last year as governor. will the replacement governor follow through on it? Nobody knows. Although there's rumor that he's going to have his wife run. If she wins, he'll get an additional, 6 or 12 years of governorship. So I'm okay. I would vote for her just because, I figure he'll be behind her. But it'd be great when they do away with it, if they do away with it. But in the meantime, I said, why don't he just sign an executive order doubling the homestead exemption to $100,000 instead of $50,000, and that would cut my taxes in half. I don't care if I got to pay $700 a year, But it's ridiculous. I mean, like I said, the biggest issue, we don't have any true ownership. My house is paid off. I paid cash for it, but I don't technically own it because I don't pay the fucking taxes. Well, guess what? You'll be reading about me in a newspaper. That's another story. Mike says my taxes used to be $1,400, now they're $5,800. I couldn't do that. I mean, it would literally, it would bankrupt me. I don't have the money to do it, Of course, I'm on a fixed income too, but if I were working, I wouldn't blink an eye at it, but I'm not working. At 66 and after a stroke, work is not even on the table anymore. Derek says plastic, $5, real gold, $50,000. Yeah, I know. Actually, the plastic isn't even $5. It's more like, I think the actual value of it in 3D filament, if you do it that way, or even resin, is about 50 cents to $1. I was thinking of a gold resin round gold. Yeah, well, you can think about all you want. I ain't doing it for 6 months. I'm not kidding. I mean, realistically, I got to get my shit done in here, man. I'm doing all this stuff for everybody else, which is fine. But at some point, I'm going to have to say, hey, wait a minute, guys. I got shit I got to do. Once I get caught up with my stuff, I'll be more than happy to, help others again. But, it doesn't make sense for me to not be able to do my stuff, and if I put everybody else in front of me. So I'm sure you can understand that. Track said, so they all shit golden eggs except for the people who pay. I know. It ain't right. They should do away with property taxes on a federal level. They're illegal anyway. I was watching a documentary the other day on YouTube, and they were saying, well, they've always had property taxes even in the beginning. I go, that's bullshit. We did not always have property taxes in America. That came much later on. So, I mean, that's why we fought the British to do away with a lot of this unnecessary taxation. So, But like I said, you can't even trust the news anymore. They lie like a rug, my dad used to say. Here they only have to do two terms, 6 years full pension, and the hosers get 2 houses. I know. This is a train channel for 6 months. No spikes allowed. There we go. No. I don't think they make gold resin. Not water wash anyway, and I don't use the other resin. So you're kind of out of luck all the way around. So anyway, getting back to trains. What the hell else was I going to talk about? Oh, so I'm printing a bunch of stuff for my wife. She hasn't seen any of it yet. It's a surprise. It's part of her Christmas gift. Because I asked her, I said, what do you want for Christmas? So I want you to make me, she gave me a list of all the stuff she wants me to make her for her glass and jar factory on the 2nd level. All right, no problem. I could do that. So I've been 3D printing on the resin printer. Everything from animals to pallets to we got the crates with the water bottles in them and stuff. All cool stuff. So I'm trying to get that all together. Also did some bunnies for her. Little tiny bunnies. Oh, HO scale, you know. And what else did she want? She wanted 2 sitting cat statues, so I can make them a little bigger. But then she wanted actual walking cats, a regular size. They were kind of tiny too. But so far, yeah. Let's see. Spike Man says, Jim, I seen on eBay a brass railroad spike for $425. That seems pretty expensive for brass. I don't know what brass goes for nowadays, but I gotta say one thing about spikes. You are definitely into spikes. Me, not so much. I mean, like I said, I got the 2 that you sent me. They're still up on the wall. Where are they? Yeah, if you can, you see them right there. I framed them and everything. And then I got the screw spike that you gave me. I gotta put that in the frame one of these days too. I got it in the drawer. But that's about as far as I want to go for railroad spikes, you know. Just because they're kind of cool, but I don't want to have hundreds of them. Or what do you got, thousands now? I mean, that's cool if that's your hobby, but it's not really mine, so, you know. And I did look around. I was up at the railroad crossing the other day. And, yeah, because I remember I did the short for the short train. And I did a brief look around. I didn't see any spikes. And like I said, I don't want to really get into where I'm trespassing. Because there's a certain area where they basically say you can't go beyond this point, you know. Yeah, I need to get a trespass charge for looking for spikes. So the last time I found them, they were real close to the road. But they replaced some of the rails and they replaced the whole crossing, the road part of it. And I think they picked up a lot of the stuff that was down there. Because I haven't seen anything. So can't do much about that. Spike Man needs a spike. I'm assuming that's what you're going to spike with trucks that runs. And that's probably not a bad idea. That would be cool to make for you. Yeah, you're running O scale, right, Thomas? You could probably do that. I mean, it wouldn't be free, obviously, because I'd have to buy the wheels to the trucks and the wheels and the couplers. But I could actually print the spike. It'd be a little bit bigger than normal. Well, actually, that'd probably be the right size for O scale, and make that as the actual train car. We'll talk about that down the road if you're interested. It won't happen anytime soon, but I could do it. All right, Andy, thanks for popping in, man. Have a good night and have a fun weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you next week. So now you're back to HO scale. Damn it, make up your mind. What the hell are you working with? I know you started out with HO. Then you didn't you use N for a while? And then you went to O scale. Now you're back to HO? Damn. Derek, I could use some tracks to a spike, take it for a tour on a layout. Well, and I could do one even in HO scale. It's not, like I said, either way. And actually, I have a few trucks laying around. I got some of the old style ones with the coupler attached to them, which would be fun. Of course, I'd put knuckle couplers on there if you wanted those. And like I said, build the frame and then mount the spike on there, and there you go. Or you could just cheat and use a flat car and glue a spike onto it. I don't know. You'll figure it out. Hey, Floyd Robbins. How you doing, Floyd? Good to see you here. And somebody said Messi was in here. Messy, did you sneak in? Hey, Messy Mason, how you doing? Messy Modeler, actually. Good to see you here, man. You can make a GE ET44AH spike diesel. I don't even know what that... I mean, I know what the ET44 is, but I don't see how you would make a spike diesel. Now you're getting into areas which... over my head. And like I said, I don't want to do anything more complicated for you anymore because, you know, it takes too much time. No, actually, Messy, what happened was, because if I go to my home computer, because I've got the stream up there so my wife can watch it, and everything's normal there. What's happening is, I think it was Tom Grassi said, OBS is changing it. It's because I thought it was YouTube too, but apparently it's not. So it's something to do with the OBS and possibly my third-party overlay program. It's confusing. But I haven't gotten another up. I'm running 32.0.2 OBS, which is the last update they did, and that's when this started happening. So I'm hoping whatever next update is, they'll fix it. We'll see. Because it's a little confusing. I mean, like Nashville Steam is actually Spike Man. But Nashville Steam is his actual channel name. He keeps changing things around back and forth, but he's still going under Spike Man. But OBS isn't recognizing it as such. Yeah, if I use StreamYard instead of OBS, they'd probably be correct too. So now, as much as I'd like to blame YouTube for this, I don't believe it's them. I believe it's OBS. So anyway, they got so much shit going on here, it's funny. So I'm trying to get all her stuff put together in time for Christmas. I gotta wrap it up and present it to her. Oh, I know, Thomas, you're still Spike Man. I said if I go in the house, I've got the channel up there, and it's still showing you a Spike Man, and everything is correct. But here, because I'm using OBS for the actual stream, it changed everything. Really weird. Oh yeah, so this is another thing that pissed me off too. I'm going to bring this up here and show it to you, and some of you will recognize it. This is an O scale. It looks smaller, but it's actually an O scale. Trump garbage truck. Remember I made the first ones, the Trump garbage truck, and I was selling them? I even gave away a few of them. Well, damn it, wouldn't you know it, somebody must have seen them and built one and put it on a flat car. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, because I don't even think you could patent something like that, but it's still pretty cool, though. But that thing there is like $88. But keep in mind, it is O scale. And I saw that at Train World for they get their email advertisements. And I like to look through them just to shits and giggles, you know. There's another point, too. You could buy an MTH O scale steam locomotive, the equivalent of a big boy. It's not a big boy, but it's close. It's a 4884, I think. And they want $543 for it. The only thing it doesn't have is real smoke. But it's sound and DCC equipped, ready to rock and roll. Made by MTH. And then yesterday I was looking at, I didn't put it up here, but they had the Lionel, basically the same locomotive, but it did have smoke, but also DCC and sound equipped. $2,064. And I'm thinking, damn, that smoke unit must have cost a fortune. I mean, you're paying for the name, obviously, but Could you imagine paying $2,000 for a locomotive? You know, I don't care what scale it is. That's too damn much money. The flat car say Trump trainer? I didn't notice. Let me check that. Oh yeah, it does. All right, I didn't notice that before. Oh, you're quick. You pointed that out. But it's mostly the Trump garbage truck, which, you know, I made the first one, and then somebody went ahead and copied it. So, like I said, it's not a big deal. It kind of pisses me off a little bit, but like I said, they want it was $88 or $89 for that. Big money, you know. But it is O scale. So, you know. And I thought I'd put it up there because I thought, well, they'll get a kick out of that. Because you remember, right after Trump did that, the commercial, or whatever the hell it was, I said, yeah, I'm going to make some of those. So I took my existing garbage trucks, made the same it's the exact same decal, put it on the side. There you go, Trump garbage truck, and I was selling them, and a few of you guys got them. So bullshit. But you know, it is what it is. So anyway, before I go any further, while it's still early, Gerald Stewart sent me this video earlier today, and I was able to post it. And it's 11 minutes. I believe it's 11 minutes, and it gives you some really good, solid tips on soldering electronic components. I figured it might be helpful for any of you guys that may not be, you know, professional solderers. Not everybody is, and it might really be helpful. And even for the guys who do know what they're doing, it still might be helpful. So I'm going to run that in a minute here. Someone stole your garbage. Yeah, I know they did. Ain't right. The O-Scale company probably copyrighted it so that you can't make it. Oh, bullshit. I'll still make it. And like I said, my file was dated. So, you know, if there's any argument, sorry guys, I came up with it first. But you know, and before I said, there's another thing I want to point out. Now, when I was, before my stroke, when I was really heavily into modifying cars, I had a lot of great ideas, all right? And some of these ideas were actually, they built them. You know, I don't know if they got them from me or maybe they just had the same thinking I did. But back in I think it was around 1982, 83, I thought it'd be cool to have a self-inflating tire on the car. So I didn't ever made one, but I got the drawings on it, you know, the blueprints. It's a workable solution. It's very similar to what they're using today. And it was basically each wheel had a small compressor built into it with a counterweight so that it wouldn't be off balance. And contacts that would brush against the inside of the wheel like a brake, you know, like almost like a brake rotor or something. And you could put power to it and pump your tire up. If it was completely blown out, you could, you know, air up your tires. A lot of it was like W007 or whatever, but I had the idea and I was going to produce it. And I thought, well, who in the hell would want this, you know? I go second guessing myself. And then years later, was it General Motors or Ford? One of the two actually came up with it, and they have it was Hummer. Hummer has a self-inflating tire. They went one step further, though. Instead of using a compressor, they've got basically a tube of Fix-A-Flat that I don't know how they set it off, somehow probably electrically, but if there was a small puncture in the tire, it would seal the puncture and reinflate the tire. So it's a little bit better than my system, sort of, but it was still my fucking idea. Also, another idea where, how many times you guys, you know, went somewhere, left your car windows down, went in the store, and while you're in there, it fucking dumps rain on there, now your interior's all wet, right? It happens to everybody. Well, I had a windshield sensor. It was right underneath on the cowling up behind the hood. when it got wet or moist, it would automatically roll up all your windows. And once again, I never built it, but I got the blueprints for it. It is a workable solution. Well, I understand some of the cars have that feature now too. That pisses me off. I come up with these ideas, I don't build them or patent them, and somebody else comes up with them and they make all the money. It ain't right. But I had all these really cool ideas, you know, like I said, I got a little folder, I still have it packed away, with all my ideas for revolutionizing cars. And like I said, I did all this shit back in the early to mid 1980s, before any of this stuff came out, you know. But I can't get credit for any of it because I never built any of it, never patented it. It is what it is. Anyway, well, the James Bond car is really, you gotta remember too, it's fake, you know, so, I mean, that's Hollywood special effects, you know. Same with Knight Rider, his car inflated the tires too. And there's a lot of cars that did that, you know, so. But nobody actually had a real world working system until the Hummer came about, and the Hummer was the first one to have it. And I'm pretty sure it was the military that designed it, because they would need it more than your average consumer would. So, you know. Anyway, enough of me yakking. Let's do that video. So enjoy the video, and I'm going to relax. Well, I'm going to watch it too, because I haven't actually seen it yet. I kind of like, you know, just kind of bump through a couple of areas and say, oh, that looks interesting. So here we go.
This is a perfect soldering joint. This one has too much solder. This one looks like it's a cold joint, and this one looks like it's starving. We've all made at least one of these mistakes, and if you're here, that's probably because you're trying to level up your soldering game. I've been doing this for 15 years, or probably more at this point, and I've learned quite a few tips and tricks that could turn anyone into a pro. So let me show you, and trust me, it's actually pretty simple. And before we get started, make sure you are in a well-ventilated space. Open up a window or run a fume extractor. This one is not the best one, but it's better than nothing. Before we jump into soldering, I need to tell you a little bit about solder. I'm going to keep this extremely general. You could make an entire video just talking about solder, so I really want to keep it very brief. There are basically two types of solder: leaded solder and lead-free solder. Lead-free solder is a tiny bit more difficult to work with as it melts at higher temperatures. Then there's the leaded solder, which is a lot more forgiving and a lot easier to work with. So if you are a beginner, it is definitely easier to start with leaded solder. The next thing you need to know is that there are different widths of solder. They're meant for different purposes. If you're soldering large wires, you need to have a very thick core, or rather thick diameter of solder. If you're soldering tiny little components, you have to go for a very thin solder. So let's jump into the first step of actual soldering. All right, before soldering, we've got some cleaning to do. For this purpose, I utilize 91% isopropyl alcohol. Anything above 70% will do. 99 would be preferable. I get my hands on 91 pretty easily, so this is what I utilize. This is perfectly good enough. I have mine in a dispensable bottle where it is super easy to actually dose just the tiniest bit, and I utilize it so much that this becomes extremely handy. Isopropyl alcohol is great for cleaning electronics and PCBs. One, it evaporates really quick. So if you soak your electronics in isopropyl alcohol, evaporate very quickly. That said, do turn off your electronics before using anything at all on them. Just a caution. Take the board that you're going to be soldering, the spot that you're going to be soldering, and make sure the metal is clean. There's no buildup, there's no gunk. This is the point of this step. Isopropyl alcohol will basically break down any dirt that's on top of the metal. Now don't worry about scrubbing it crazy, just make sure there's no big buildup on top of the joint that you're going to be soldering. Now the next step arguably is probably one of the most important, and to be honest, here's a story. I wish somebody told me to use flux a long time ago, because I was misled and led to believe that flux is not necessary. It is probably the most important step in the whole entire procedure. Now you might be saying to yourself, there is already flux within the core of the solder, and you would be absolutely correct. For majority of soldering, this is enough. That said, if you want to make a really pretty joint, flux cleans and preps your pad as you're soldering. And it is kind of like a magical assistant that just simply guides the solder to exactly where it needs to be. Flux activates under temperature, so it basically does nothing until you are applying heat to it. And it is super simple to use. Just put a tiniest bit of flux on the pad or on the through-hole component that you're going to be soldering. It's kind of like a guarantee. Basically, you might not need flux because there is flux in the core of the solder, but it is definitely a nice to have. And it will make your job so much easier. If you do anything, this is probably the most important step, I would argue, to get a very beautiful, I would call it even a perfect soldering joint. Now, if there is something even more important, is probably setting the right temperature on your soldering iron. Too cold and the solder just simply blobs up and it doesn't actually spread and doesn't adhere properly to the metals. Too hot and you will burn your components, you will scorch them. So how do you actually know what temperature to set? Well, look at your solder. If it is lead-free, I would say start around 350 Celsius, go up to 370, more or less in that range. If your solder is leaded, go to about 320 up to 350. Now the temperatures will slightly vary depending on the solder type you have, so look at the datasheet, look at the manufacturer spec, but that's probably a good range to start with. Now you also need to adjust for the type of job you're doing. If you're soldering tiny little components that are very small, you probably need less heat. If you're soldering a large, big wire that is connected to a ground, yeah, you're gonna have a lot more trouble heating that pad, right? So you have to set your temperature a tiny bit higher. Now do be careful, because again, you could go too high and you could scorch and burn your components basically, or you could go too low and the solder just was going to act like it's a solid basically. So adjust based on the job, and even if you're soldering a header and that last pin is ground, you probably have to actually go up in temperature for that specific pin. At least that's what I do, in order to have all of them soldered quite perfectly. But there's also a gotcha. How do you actually transfer the heat from the iron to the pad and to the joint? That matters a lot, and that's probably the thing that most people mess up. And by the way, if you want to learn soldering, you'll probably love my micro eraser project. It's a little DIY kit that you build yourself. There's a tiny bit of soldering involved, so hey, you'll get to solder. Everything you need to make one of these comes inside of a kit. And the best part, at the end, you'll have a really fun project that you could play with, that you can have fun with and experiment. And it's fully open sourced. So hey, and fully hackable too. You can actually change the firmware, write your own code and your own logic. And the gameplay is actually pretty fun too. The micro erasers spin out when they hit a banana, speed up when they hit a red mushroom, and slow down on that muddy puddle. Plus, I'm building out a private community. Lifetime access is $149, but yours comes free with a purchase of the micro eraser. Use the link below and make sure to check it out. You could grab one at stockaprototype.com. The first time you build this and then get to drive around your desk, you'll be hooked, trust me. Now, speaking of soldering on the micro eraser, probably the biggest thing that a lot of people mess up is how they transfer heat from a soldering iron to the actual part that they are soldering. This is super critical. Once your soldering iron is hot enough, you have to make sure to properly clean it and then tin the actual tip itself. Without tinning the tip, if you're putting it down on a pad, there's not much heat transfer. So the point of the tinned tip is not to put solder onto the pad, but instead use the solder as a transfer, as a heat transfer. Basically a liquid that's transferring the heat from the soldering tip to the actual pad and the joint that you're going to be soldering. Now, again, and I want to stress this, it is not for actually soldering, it is to simply transfer the heat. And in order to properly clean your tip, I highly recommend a brass wool cleaner just like this one here. Add a little bit of solder to your iron, clean the tip again and again, make it nice and shiny. Then prime your tip with just the tiniest bit of solder. That solder is what's going to help you transfer the heat to the actual joint. So once you've tinned your iron, get that pad and the joint really nice and warm. And then let the actual pad and the joint melt the new solder. So then you're going to take the solder and actually start feeding the pad and the joint. You're not feeding the iron anymore. You're not trying to melt the solder with the iron. That's not the point here. Point is to warm up the pad and the joint and the lead, and then feed that solder directly to the pad and the joint itself. You're melting the solder with the joint, not with the iron. Now, if this step is taking longer than 3 seconds, that means your soldering iron is not hot enough. But if it is charring and burning, that means your iron is way too hot. So that's how you know if you have to go up or down in temperature on the iron itself. So once you've actually fed the solder into the joint, you're looking for this beautiful bell-like shaped, reverse bell I guess, maybe you could call it, and you're looking for a shiny, nice surface. If it is bulging and it is basically bulging to the outside, that means you fed too much solder. If it is looking empty or has a hole, it's basically a starving joint, right? There's not enough solder. Add a tiny bit more. And if it is shaped and just weird, odd looking, not a beautiful shape like this, that means it is probably a cold joint. Good news, it is easy to fix it. Let me just walk you quickly through all the scenarios one by one. If you've used too much solder, there is a very quick and easy way to fix that. One, take your soldering wick, and this is basically just a copper wire really with a little bit of flux. So you can utilize simply a copper wire if you don't have any wick. Take the wick, apply it to the joint that has too much solder. Take your iron and warm up the wick from the outside. Again, pre-tin your iron, make sure there's a good heat transfer. Touch it and let the wick absorb the solder, and that ends up with less solder on your joint. If you see a cold joint and your solder is uneven in spaces or has holes or whatever, then add a tiny bit more flux, heat up the whole entire thing again, and let it remelt. So to quickly recap, the perfect soldering joint starts with the clean prepped surface, flux, a properly tinned iron. Remember, heat the pad and the joint. Don't melt the solder with the actual iron unless you're of course tinning it. That's the only purpose for melting directly with the iron. Feed the solder directly to the joint, let it cool down slowly and nicely and smoothly, and you'll have a perfect soldering joint. I hope you learned something. Subscribe if you have. Check out stockupprototype.com if you want to support the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much.
There we go. Now we got it. I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened there, man. Ah, what a mess. All right, Floyd. Have a good one. Thanks for popping in. And JD popped in. No, I didn't forget to turn it on. It just shut down on me. Grandpa Rails, Jim, JD, good to see you here. Yeah, I knew I had no sound, and I got it now. What the hell's ASL? I have no idea what that is. Yeah, I said, what the hell's, I had to shut down the overlay and everything. So, I got no, well, I don't think I've got an overlay. Let me see, I might still have it. Oh yeah, it's back. What do you know? Alright, James, have a good one, man. Thanks for popping in. You guys have a good one, and be safe, and good night, and we'll see you next week. So anyway, we got that out of the way. That was a pretty good soldering documentary, I guess you call it. So I want to thank Gerald Stewart for that. Let's see. So anyway, let's see. Do I still have an overlay? Yeah, it still works. What do you know? I said everything was starting to. I don't know what was going on. Comcast is screwing up again. I'm going to do a speed test and see where I'm at. Hold on just a second. I can't show it to you, but I can show it up here. See what the hell I got going on. I have a feeling it's dog slow. Oh yeah. It's pinging at 21 milliseconds, which is terrible. Looks like it's running 91 down. And yeah, the up's a little lower than it should be. Looks like around 32 up. Should be 41. So we got 91 down, 32 up. Pinging at 21 milliseconds. It's not good. So I'm going to blame this on Comcast. And why not, right? Thomas said, Jim, I did a short on the CSX Henderson sub. Cool. So, let's see, did I miss anything else here? What was going on there? No, not really. So, American Sign Language. That's kind of funny there, man. Where did it go? There we go. American Sign Language. Yeah. Well, I guess I knew it went out because I got the meter right in front of me here, and it was dead. And I'm thinking, well, the light's on here. Why in the hell isn't it working? So I'm on and off, on and off. Then I went into the settings. It's showing it right there as active, but it wasn't. So then I unplugged it, plugged it back in, and turned it off and back on, and it works. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I wonder if maybe, well, I don't know, I've got a, what do I got here? Shit, I can't remember how much RAM I got. I got like 30, no, it's more than 32. Maybe it is only 32 gig of RAM. Maybe I need to buy more RAM, or maybe the RAM's failing. So, speed test 950 down, 300. Well, it must be nice to have that 300 up. Normally, I'm in the high 900s for down. I never get above 41 up, but that's Comcast. I would kill for 300 up. That's pretty damn impressive, you know. But yeah, that's unfortunately we just don't. Well, I saw a thing on YouTube today where They said the Starlink, Elon Musk thing, they're they're drastically lowering the price of it. I don't know much about it, but I may look into it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of satellite. I don't know how well it works in storms. I know, the ones for TV channels, they suck. You know, if it's cloudy out or if it starts raining or snowing, it just doesn't work. Yeah, we are lucky, Tom. We don't have. They're supposed to be bringing one in someday. That's supposed to be using all fiber, and if that happens, oh hell yeah, we'll probably get some decent speeds. But right now, all we have, there's only two companies in Sebring. There's Comcast, and there's it's not AT&T anymore, but whatever the phone company is, and their internet's shit. I got it when I first came up here, and I had it for like 2 months. That 2 months, it might have actually been working for maybe 5 days in between, it was erratic. I finally said, screw this. I'm going to Comcast. Because, see, back in Naples, I had Comcast, and we had a lot of billing issues. They'd double bill me, triple bill me. And, oh, you didn't pay your bill this month, we're going to shut you off. Look, I pay my fucking bill every month, And, I think Comcast is everywhere, Thomas. Seems like it anyway. Gerald says I have 420 down and 620 up. Well, if you're doing live streaming, that 620 up's a blessing. If you're doing a lot of downloading, well, 420 is not bad. 900 is a lot better. But in reality, who was it? What the hell's his name? The one that just bought land in Virginia. Or West Virginia. Ken Jr. Ken Amos Jr. He says he's getting like 1,000 up, 1,000 down. Because they got fiber there too. And I'm thinking, geez, I should have moved there. It's ridiculous that our internet really down here sucks. It really does. Now, see, I'm in the yellow now. Now I'm back in the green. Got 3.6% of dropped frames. So you've probably seen a lot of jerky motion on me, I'd imagine. And now it's back in the green again. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I know they're going to blame it. Well, now it's back in the red. They're going to blame it on those solar flares, I'm sure of it. Whether that's the problem or not is anybody's guess. It was working fine until the first set of solar flares hit. So maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know. But this is like the third solar flare that's hit Earth this month, I think. I don't know what the hell to believe anymore. But, it is what it is. So, here we are. So anyway, we got the video out. We got the dump truck out. Trump truck. So we talked about the P-42. I think we covered just about everything, really. And the trains, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know why I lost the consist. I might have to take the box apart again and pull the coin battery out. I had to do that once before down in Naples because I don't know if it just wouldn't let go of all the consist memories that way, and I think there were too many of them. I pulled the coin battery out, waited 15 seconds, put it back in. Problem solved. Let's see. Yeah, meteor showers. Yeah, it could be. Who knows? Tom Grassi says, Jim, I found 2 turnout motors for my double slip. Had no power after several tests. Found the wires were connected to my accessory bus line only. 9 volts DCC on that. Need 14 volts to run the motor. Yeah, that'll happen. Yeah, that's the thing, though. You know, anytime you get into electronics, there's that possibility something's gonna fuck up. It just happens, you know. I mean, you DC guys, and there's some of you still out there. You probably don't have these problems. You know, you got a straight up DC transformer. You turn the lever, you're good to go. What about a meteor bath? I don't know. I don't stargaze anymore. I used to when I was younger, but I haven't done it in many, many years. Because I used to go out and watch the oh shit, what the hell are they called? It's a meteor shower, asteroids or something. I don't remember what the hell they're called now, but I used to go watch it. I mean, once or twice a year they come about. And I always looked at things. I had a telescope a long time ago. I used to look at planets and stuff. It was fun. But, you know, like everything else, it gets old after a while. Thomas says, Jim, I found a brand new CSX railroad spike. A brand new one, huh? How'd you do that? One must have fell out of the machine, right? I've never seen a new railroad spike. I see them, they're all old and rusty and shit. Or AC if you're into post-war O gauge or Markman age. Oh, they ran on AC? I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess they would, come think of it. So, like I said, I'm sure they were less troublesome. Now, don't get me wrong, I love DCC. I think that's the coolest thing they ever did in the model railroads, but they do have their cons as well as their pros. Like I said, I've had to do that before. Just pull the cover off the main unit there, pull the coin battery out. I think it's I can't remember the names of the battery, the numbers of the batteries now, but pull it out, wait 10 seconds, put it back in. It blows the entire memory out of the thing, which is what you want to do. Then it's almost like a factory reset. And then you're good to go, because I was having problems similar to this back in Naples after a while. Because I was doing a lot of consistency, MUs, multiple units. And after a while, it's like, well, I couldn't get anything work right. It's like, what the hell? So, Ray says, DCC just isn't for me, DC all the way. Like I said, a lot of guys are DC, and I don't blame you, It's in a way, it's a little more complicated, well, depending how you do it. A lot of guys will have zones, but no matter whether you have zones or you just run it straight, it's less problematic. It really is. But I like the DCC, and I still think it's a really great system overall. But I'm not going to lie to you, it has problems on occasion. And, we've all experienced problems with our DCC, whether you got Digitrax or NCE or one of the other ones. Eventually, you're going to have a problem. Either the cab controller is going to go bad, or the main unit may go bad, or power supply will take a shit on you. It's always something, Spike Man says, Raven, I'm getting a 1935 pre-war Lionel train set for Christmas, and it's worth $274,000. Okay. I question that a little bit, but hey, what do I know? Tom Grassi says, Jim, this was from when I lost my NCE power supply. I moved my DCC bus lines around to other boosters. All my accessory bus lines were moved to my Tam Valley 5 amp booster, but that is only putting out 9 volts. Is it supposed to be that low? Because you really need 14 volts for, your tracks. That's what it should be putting out anyway. I think realistically you can go between 12 and 20 volts, but optimally I think it's 14 and a half volts is optimal, supposedly. Well, I'm not sure about any of that. So there are reproductions, but the one I'm getting is all original. And Derek says a real train isn't worth $274,000. I would question that. Like I said, I don't know. Ray says 2 power packs, at least 2 selectors, some isolated real joiners, and you're good. Yeah, it's true. So it's simpler. I was running DC before I went to DCC back in Naples with my first 2 layouts. And of course I didn't have a really complex layout either. The first one, when I started with N scale, and I basically just had an oval, you know. Yeah, I started adding turnouts and stuff, so it got a little more complex, but still, even with that, I didn't have any real issues, but, you know, I could only, well, realistically, I only run one engine on each main, so I wound up having 2 or 3 mains. Each one had its own loco, and I don't think I was able to consist them. I don't remember doing it. So, you know, I had 2 or 3 trains running simultaneously, but on separate tracks. So, Tom Grass says, Jim, the Tam Valley 5 amp booster is used for my accessories light. See, oh, okay. Thomas says the bad thing about old vinyl stuff is the cotton wire. Oh, you mean the coverings on it? Yeah, that's weird. I rebuilt a couple of pre-war vinyl locos, steam locos, for my stepson, and I don't know where he probably stole them, but none of them ran, so I got them. He had 5 of them. I was able to get 4 of them in operating condition. And mostly was the cleaning armatures and, you know, minor stuff. More of a maintenance issue than anything else, because they were really old. Said they were pre-war, you know. Boy, we've come a long way with everything from that era, you know. Do I know anything about cotton wire? Well, it's not wire, it's not cotton. It's the insulation over it. If you had some showing, of course you'd have to unsolder it or cut it. You could put shrink tubing around it to insulate it. But other than that, or you can wrap black tape around it, or you can use liquid tape. Any kind of insulator would work if it's causing a short. You just got to be careful how you do it. I found that most of that insulation, though, never really went bad. I mean, it would get brittle over time, but it really, unless it's really bad, it'll flake off. But in most cases, it's pretty stout. Ray says, the only digital I have is a Mark 1 digital for my 3-rail HO. A 3-well HO, huh? That's weird. That's Mark 1. I don't know nothing about Mark 1, but that's another reason why I kind of stick with one scale, too, because it's just kind of easier in a way. You know, it was because a lot of guys will use N scale on the back of the layout, against the wall for perspective, which is a cool idea. Matter of fact, Nissy J, she does that. She's got like a mountain range around her layout, and on top of that's N scale, but the rest is HO. And it actually looks good from a perspective point of view. But I'd rather not, just pick a scale and stay there. That's the way to do it. Derek says, Spike Man, there's a Lionel Estate find pre-war 262 steam loco and tender with 3 cars and a caboose on eBay for $299.99. That's not bad. That's actually pretty cheap for pre-war. Races of getting a legendary Lionel ZW transformer. Be sure to upgrade all the wiring and circuit breakers. Yeah, I'd imagine you want to. They're expensive either way though, man. That's the big one with 2 handles, I think. And Thomas says you mean a double aught, Raven. Alright, says Hornby once made a double aught 3 rail, but since switched over to a 2 rail. I don't know nothing about any of that stuff. Like I said, I'm not real big on model train history. So I'm going to stay out of that one. Like I said, I like the HL. I think it's in some ways the perfect scale. You know, I really like O scale, but you need a lot of real estate for it if you really want to do a big layout. And they're very expensive. Like I said, that one, the Lionel, that was a 484. Steam engine with smoke, $2,064. That's a little over my budget. You know, I'd be lucky to even have one of them, let alone a fleet of them. And Ray says, yes, the ZW Transformers' time was very powerful, and they were good-looking Transformers for their time, you know. I never had one of those. I had it was a pre-war Lionel train set, which my dad bought, I don't know when, probably before I was born, obviously. And he used to put it up every year around the tree, underneath the Christmas tree, and the cast iron engine, I think they were cast iron or something that they were pretty heavy. Steam engine, with real smoke, and a few different cars and 3-wheel track, and then I started playing with it later on, Had set up in my bedroom. And then when we moved down here, I don't know, I think my dad tossed it, I don't know. It never made it down here though, I know that. So I mean, he got rid of a lot of stuff up there. Because basically we had the TV shipped. It was one of those, it was a Zenith, all in one deal, the big cabinet. Had the record player in there, the AM/FM stereo. I think it had an 8-track and the TV underneath, color TV. And he paid extra money to have it shipped because it was very fragile and they had to do a bunch of shit to it, tighten it up or something. And it wound up at the house. But other than that, we had everything we owned in a small pull behind U-Haul trailer. Remember those things? Used to get the hitch that would clamp to your bumper. That's when I had steel bumpers on the cars. And it was just a single wheel. I think it was maybe 4x8, 4x10, something like that. And all our possessions were in that, and that was all we brought down, So I imagine he just tossed a lot of things he felt we didn't need. I wish he'd hung on to that because it's actually worth money now. Not worth $200,000, but I priced the pre-war steam locos that my stepson had, and they were worth between $300 and $600 depending on their condition. And I'd say they were probably down the low end because they really need. I mean, I could have really cleaned them up and repainted them and everything else, and I could have made them like new, but they still ran, but cosmetically they weren't that great. And I imagine he probably pawned them off for $20. I'll buy some crack or whatever he was doing, It's a damn shame, but I would have bought them off him, but I just didn't want to get involved in it. Like I said, if they were stolen, I don't know how. They have serial numbers on them. I didn't want to get caught with stolen goods. But Jim Lionel 00 scale had Hudson's, and they had air whistles in their tenders. I seen a Lionel 00 scale train, so it's possible. But my wife's O scale Lionel, it has the whistle on the tender too. I had to fix it, but it works now. That's just a real O scale, Actually, it's 027, I believe. But I said I had I bought that on eBay. I think I paid like $80 or $90 for the set. There's the engine, the tender. There's a boxcar, a gondola, a tanker, and a caboose with, I think, a 4-foot oval track. And I think there was an O-scale truck that came with it. It was like a moving truck or tractor trailer. And I think a couple of fake trees or something. I don't remember. I got a deal, and that's why I bought it. And because she wanted a pink one, and I couldn't find them. They had them, but I couldn't afford them. So I got that one. I repainted everything. Stripped the bodies off and painted. Well, I actually painted the loco and the tender pink, a hot pink, and I did the other cars were each like a fluorescent color. One's like a fluorescent green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent blue. And it came out really cool. You guys have seen it. She wants to do a permanent layout, maybe on a 4x4 sheet of plywood. So we're gonna get that set up for her pretty soon. And I told her, if you want anything, let me know. I'll print it for you. Buildings or whatever. So she's working on what she wants to do, and I think she's going to work on. She said something about like having like a Japanese buildings and stuff on it, which would be cool. I could print a lot of that stuff. We'll see how that comes out. Races, that must have been one of those Lionel Vision Line steamboat. I've heard of them, but I've never seen one. And Thomas says, I'll find you a video. Okay. Yeah, well, it's a double lot, just an English HO, basically. I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, supposedly they had HO, but I'd never heard of them. When you saw model trains, they were always O scaling, O or 027. However that worked out, but I know they didn't have N yet, I don't think. I said I found out about HO scale when I was a young man. I think it was 18 or 19 when I bought my first, HO train set. And I had a 4x8 sheet of plywood that I built a layout on. And like I said, then my daughter was born, and well, I just couldn't afford to do both. So, raising my daughter was more important than playing with trains, so I sold everything, and I didn't go back into trains until, well, after I had the stroke. So that was in 2007. So, but yeah, I still think this is a great hobby, but it's an expensive one, man. I show my wife prices of something. You gotta be kidding me. No, that's what it costs, And that's why I don't buy a lot of stuff, because I just don't have the money, By the way, on December 10th, Crooked Dave Thurber and Chris from Tennessee River Valley Railroad are going to be coming to my house for like a mini meet and greet. I intend on asking Tom Kavitchak, because he lives around the corner from me, basically. I'm going to try and get him over here. And I think I might even see if I can get hold of Curtis. Curtis isn't that far away. Get him over here. But if anybody else is going to be near Sebring on December 10th, you're cordially invited to come and hang out with us at my house and my train shed for like a little meet and greet, which is going to be a lot of fun. Then we're going to have lunch probably at the local diner and talk a lot of train shit. So, I'm looking forward to it. Gerald says OO is 1/100th scale. Oh yeah, HO is 1/187. So the OO is slightly bigger. But I've heard it'll run on HO track. Is that true? Like I said, that's only what I've heard. I have no idea. Derek says electric versions of HO scale were introduced in 1924 and had its biggest boom in the 1950s. Huh. I guess I must have been living under a rock. I mean, not really, but, you know. I mean, we didn't have internet or anything back in those days, so I only knew what I saw, and if I didn't see it, then, you know, it didn't exist. Even though my aunt, whatever, she worked for Atlas Toy Company. So she was privy to probably all that stuff, but we never talked about it. But she used to, we had the HO slot cars, you know. And every holiday she would give all the kids, including me, an HO car racing set. I think she was stealing a lot of the shit from her work, but, you know, what do I know? But she had cars and all brand new stuff, you know. It was all Atlas brand. And track and anything you wanted, you know. And you said if we needed anything, he'd call her up and say, hey, you know, you got any of these? Yeah, come on, I'll give it to you. And she did. It was pretty cool. But that was the only thing I knew about that was an HO scale. I didn't know anything about the train. She must have known, because I'm sure Atlas was probably making them at the time, I would think. You know. Or maybe not, I really don't know. HO became the most popular. Yeah, well, it would. Races actually, OO gauge is 176 scale. They run on HO scale track. Okay, well, I heard they run on HO track. You know, I always, my impression was that the OO was from England, you know, because they always got to be a little bit different. There's a slight difference on rolling stock size. Okay. Like I said, I don't have any, you know, double aught either, so, you know. That shit gets too confusing, man. I need to keep it simple, you know. Derek says, I loved HO slot cars. Only got into 132 after 20 years old. Now, see, we had the 132 scale in the arcades up north. And they would have these massive tracks, like 15 to 20 lanes wide. And, you know, for a small price, which I don't remember what it was, like 50 cents or something for, you know, 100 laps or some fucking, I don't remember the numbers, but you could run cars, or if you brought your own car, you could run for free. But, because every now and then I'd go to the arcades and they would have the big, you know, the 132nd slot cars there. They were fun to run too. But I still like the HO better, you know. And like I said, I had an HO slot car track for shit most of my childhood. You know. And they weren't that. I remember going, well, up north we had two guys. It was like Walmart or Kmart. And they sold a lot of those cars, you know. And I think at the time the HO slot car was like $13 maybe. And they had some with, you know, multiple bodies you could change out on the chassis. And it was 12 or 13 bucks, if I remember correctly. Because I remember a few times I bought some of them. I'm back in the red again. Oh, damn it. Stupid internet. But, you know. And we used to do all kinds of things. We used to, you know, I would buy tires. They had a mail order company that I had a catalog to. I don't remember who the hell it was so long ago, but you could buy different tires for those cars. They had some that were really sticky, that would really track well. Then they had some that were so slick, if you took a corner too fast, you'd wind up, you know, spinning out. It was pretty slick. I had a lot of cool stuff for that, you know. Derek says, I had an HO slot car and HO railroad track crossing, and boy, was that, I'll bet it was. So like I said, we had the trains, the O-scale train, but for the most part, it only came out during Christmas. And I talked my dad into let me, you know, set it up in my bedroom and on the floor. You know, we didn't have carpet, had hardwood floors, and every now and then, you know, I'd play with them when I got bored. And, I mean, it wasn't much, just a circle, you know. Yeah, it was still cool, though. Gerald says, in high school, I had 27 HO scale slot cars and a scale quarter-mile drag race track in our barn bed. That would have been cool. Yeah, that would have definitely been cool. I don't remember how many slot cars. I had probably over 20. And I had a ton of them. I had trucks, cars, had a couple of police cars, a couple of Mustangs, I think a GTO. Because, you know, back in the day they modeled, you know, real cars at the time. So I think there were a couple of they weren't drag cars. Well, they weren't rail dragsters, but funny cars. They had funny cars. I think I had a couple of funny cars too. Cool stuff. You know, then I grew up and kind of got away from it. So, you know, yeah, I think probably like most kids, we were into everything. We built plastic models, you know, 1/25th scale model cars, trucks, and whatever. Slot cars, trains. I did model airplanes for a while, you know, the RC ones. The first one I got didn't have a radio controller on it. It had a string and a handle, and you had to spin around with it. And depending how you twisted it, it would either climb or dive. You know, it sucked, but it was, you know, at the time it was a big thing, you know. Derry said, Gerald, I did too, and used the curve tracks to get back to the start line. We used to put lighter fluid on the tires and light it and do. I never thought of that. That's pretty cool. Smoke the tires. Yep. I would smoke them too. Like I said, they had some. I remember buying a set. They were kind of sticky, you know. And I don't know what they were made out of, but some sort of rubber. But it would actually stick to your fingers, you know. And those things would track really. It slowed them down. That was the bad thing about it. But, I mean, you could take a turn at full throttle. Well, it was a little slower than full because of the stickiness, but the car wouldn't spin out on you. Or if you had they had the real slick tires. I suppose if you put lighter fluid on them, that would do it too. If you took a turn too fast, you'd wind up facing the wrong way, you know. Or flying off the track altogether. Good times, man, you know. And I remember seeing in magazines where they had the combination. Matter of fact, it was HO scale, but it was later on, though. But that would have been in like the mid-70s. They had the HO scale slot car track, and HO scale railroad track would cross it. So it was like, you know, the two things put together. It's pretty slick. I mean, you know, like I said, I didn't really know much about HO scale trains at the time. Gerald says, I had a Charger Daytona that I built, a custom brass frame slot car, And a truck custom drag through. That's cool. All in HO. Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah, I was too young to do anything like that, but you know, I knew how to repair them. That was the thing. The old little pancake motors in them and stuff. You know, we could clean up the armatures, replace the brushes. They were all repairable, but like I said, the good ones had the pancake motors. Some of them had the conventional motors. I think I had a couple of each. But the pancake motors were faster. Of course, you had to lube them every now and then. Had the Batmobile. I didn't have the Batmobile. That would have been cool, though. Trying to think, what the hell did I have? I had, well, mostly regular cars. A couple of funny cars. I didn't have anything from TV, though. Because I remember seeing the Green Hornet car, the Batmobile. What other things were there? I know, different cars. Like I said, I was more into the, you know, I like GTOs and that sort of thing, so I had a lot of that stuff. Custom body, custom paint job. There you go. Derek says he still thinks he has the Batmobile. That's cool. See, I don't have nothing from those days. I mean, so much of that stuff just went away. I don't know what happened to it. Does anyone here know who Lost Depot is? His first name is Chris. Not a clue. Now, I don't know anything about waffle motors or toast motors, but they had the pancake motors, though. This meant they were flat. They were flat armatures that spun around this way instead of around this way. They were much faster and more. Well, you know, they had the same thing, but they stood them up in the trains. Because the O gauge, some of the pre-war and the post-war too, I think, they had pancake motors in them, but they were stood up vertically. And then they had the gears, which would transmit, you know, power to the wheels. And yeah, I've seen plastic train sets. I would never buy one. The Daytona was a Charger GT that I modified. Yeah, too bad you don't have pictures of any of that stuff. I still have 2 Matchbox suits. I had a ton of Matchbox cars too. Flapjack motors, no, they didn't make those. I'll tell you a quick story though, and this is the truth. Before Mattel bought the Hot Wheels, my friend Michael, and we were probably, I think, 7, 8 years old at the time. This was up in New Jersey in Carteret. His dad, his name was Michael Spinoli, he was Italian. His dad was making the first Hot Wheels, but they weren't Hot Wheels at the time, making them in his basement. And he would sell them to all of us for a nickel a piece. And they were basically, but they were plastic. There wasn't metal at the time because, you know, Matchbox and Hot Wheels wound up with metal bodies. These were plastic. I think he made his own molds and everything. They were fun. It's the same type of wheels, you know, the plastic wheels with the, look like a pin or needle for the axles. And we would buy them. I had a ton of them. I should have kept them. They're worth a fortune now. Well, it turns out Mattel approached him when they found out he was making these and bought the rights to them. So he sold basically his baby to Mattel. They gave it the name Matchbox because that was the first ones that came out before Hot Wheels. And all the Matchbox, and that even at the time, I think they were selling them for 35, 40 cents a piece. I don't remember. So this is way back in, you know, the 60s. But yeah, he actually invented those, at least as far as I know. And like I said, he supposedly sold the rights to Mattel to build them. I'm sure they made him quite a wealthy man after that, but it was cool. I wish I'd have kept those cars. They were beautiful. I mean, they were plastic, but they were, identical to the cars that were on the road at the time. You know, there's 60s cars like I said, GTOs, Chevy, Chevelles, and Ford Torinos, and all the good cars, you know, Rancheros. And he made the molds for him himself. I suppose he sold all that when he sold the rights to Mattel, but man, was that cool, you know. And we had no idea, and I probably had 100 of those cars. I don't know what the hell happened to them, you know. Once again, when we moved down here, I don't think they made the move with us. I had a lot of neat toys that, you know, you can't even find anymore that were left behind. They had to have been because, you know, they didn't come down here with us. I suppose he would have needed a small trailer just for all my toys, right? So they kind of got fucked in that deal, didn't they? Jim, I have a 1960 Hot Wheels. Yeah, there's a lot of old stuff out there. Like I said, though, I don't think Hot Wheels came out until the mid-60s, though. I mean, as far as I know. And like I said, Michael Spinoli's dad, he didn't start making them. I think it was probably 64, 65, somewhere around there. So. Derek says I used to be able to buy 3 Matchbox cars for 99 cents with the 5 and 10, 5 and dimes. So I remember those. Yeah, it's just, Thomas said they're worth 169. I don't know if they're worth that much. I know some of them got high values on them, but I don't think it's quite that high. Not that I'm aware of anyway, but I could be wrong. So like I said, you know, if we only knew some of the shit I had as a kid are worth a fortune. I don't think they're worth quite that much, but they're still worth quite a bit of money. You can't find any. Well, it was on my 7th or 8th Christmas. There were 2 toys that I had that were kind of unique. Stupid, too, but they were still unique. I had a car, it was a convertible. It was about maybe 15 inches long. I don't know what the scale was on it. But it came with tools and spare tires, and you could change the tires. Had a little jack, you could jack it up. You could do all this cool stuff with it, you know. It didn't run or anything. It was just a model, but like I said, it was like you could do things with it. You change tires, and I think there was all kinds of little shit you could put in there and take out. You can't find them. I don't even know what it's called, but I've looked for them. You can't find them. It's probably it would be worth a fortune if you had one today, you know, because it was so different. And the other thing I had, and I don't remember what that was called either, but it was like a game board, but it had a fan on it, like a little miniature enclosed fan, battery powered, and you came with balloons. You'd blow up the balloon, and you'd slip it into this, look like a balloon that you ride in, and you could use the fan to manipulate it to go all over the place. I don't remember what it was called, but I said you can't find them anywhere either. Probably worth a fortune if you had one. And they had very limited toys back in the day when I was a kid, but still, you know. I think when I was 8 or 9, or no, I would have been 8 years old because I got that up north. They had a bicycle, had a 5-speed gear shift on it, sissy bar, and a banana seat. I can't remember what it's called now. I think Schwinn made it, but I'm not 100% sure. And it had a name, and I don't remember the name of it, but I wanted one so bad. My mother actually bought me one for one Christmas, you know. Best bike I ever had, the coolest bike I ever had, you know. It was 20-inch. She bought me a 28-inch, 10-speed, when I was 6 years old. I couldn't ride the damn thing, you know. Hell, I couldn't even get up on it. So I said, Mom, this isn't going to work. You got to take it back. So she did. I think she bought it for herself, maybe, but, you know. But then when we came down here, like I said, none of that stuff came down with us. So one of the first things my mom bought us was, both me and my sister, were new bicycles. So I got it was a 20-inch, had the banana seat, the sissy bar, and the little wheel in the front. It was a 5-speed as well, or 3-speed, I don't remember. And she got it from, what the hell is that store that used to sell bikes? They don't anymore. But they sell bikes and car parts. I don't remember what they were called now, but she bought me that. I was out there one day. It was like 3 days after I got it. I was popping wheelies with it, right? Well, the last time I came down on it, broke in half. How funny to say she took it back, got her money back, got me a different bike, but I'm telling you. Let's see here. Thomas says, Jim, you're going to be jealous of me. I have a BNSF Transcon E-Clip. The E-Clip is heavy. I don't know what that is. He says, I also have a 1950 Japan made bump and go train. I'm not sure what that is either. Hey, Dave Nish, how you doing? Good to see you here, man. What about a monkey bike? I don't remember if there was such a thing. Western Auto, that was it, Gerald. We had a Western Auto down here, and they sold bicycles at the time. And I guess that was a defective one. The weld broke, basically what happened. Right where the front tube of the main frame went down to where the pedals were, that's where it broke. I mean, I come down and boom, it right in half. Luckily, I didn't get hurt, but I could have gotten hurt. My mother was a little pissed off, And, of course, she didn't tell me I was riding wheelies with it because they probably would have not warranted it, But that's what we did with them bikes, Derek says, Crusader 101 driver, spare tire, jack, and spinner lug nut. I think it was, it could have been. It sounds like it, Derek. I couldn't find one, but I didn't remember that much about it, I remember having it. As I said, it was a Christmas gift from my parents. And like I said, I was always in the cars, And I just thought it was the coolest thing, And then they came out with really cool toys, later on. When my son was 2 years old. And I can't remember what that was either, but you guys probably remember it. It would look like a, it kind of looked like a tank a little bit without the gun on it. And you could program it. It was electronic. And you could program it to go straight so far, make a left turn, make a right turn, turn around. And you'd hit the go button after you programmed it and let it go, and it would do everything you told it to do. It was slick as shit. And I bought one for my son. It was expensive at the time, I think. This was back in, the late 90s? When the hell was he born? No, he was born, I think he was born in 80. He'd have been born in the 80s. I don't know. He was 2 years old. My first son, the one that's not with us anymore, but I liked it so much, and I played with it more than he did. But he was only 2 years old. He really couldn't program it, And I think I bought it because I liked it, and I thought, well, what the fuck, I think all dads do that shit, but Dave Nish says, yes, Lost Depot is Chris, but do you know his last name? They had the meet and greet in Deschler, I think, Deschler, Ohio. And Dave is, or Tom Grassie's doing all their 3D likenesses, 3D mini-me's. And that's how he identifies them, is by their real first and last name. So I guess one of the guys there is Chris from Lost Depot, but he needs the last name to put on it, so on the file. so he knows who it is when he makes it. So if you happen to know his last name, put it up in the chat so that, Tom gets it. So yeah, like I said, the toys were getting more sophisticated when my kids were growing up, And I thought, boy, we got cheated, man. We didn't have none of this cool shit, I mean, we had stupid toys in comparison, but, at the time we thought they were high tech, even though they weren't. But, it is what it is. But it was still cool, though. I mean, if they ever invent a time machine, I would go back, grab all that shit, bring it up to today, and probably make a killing on it. I think my dad had it was a real tape recorder. And I'm not going to get into the story how I wound up with it, but he wound up giving it to me. It was up in the attic. It worked. There was nothing wrong with it. And the thing, it was so old, it didn't have tape. It had a thin wire, which would slice the shit out of you. You had to be careful. But the tape was actually, it was a real thin wire. Almost, it was like the same size as the physical size as the tape, but it was, instead of tape, it was actual wire. It was razor sharp. And it worked, like I said, but at that time, I think I was 7 or 8 years old. It might have been 8 years old. I don't remember exactly. But he gave it to me, and of course, I liked taking everything apart. And in most cases, I could put it back together. That was not one of them. And of course, I took it apart and wound up in the trash, Well, when we moved down here a few years later, I was 13 years old. I came across a magazine that had a lot of these antique electronics in it. Turns out that recorder, had I saved it, had my dad not given it to me, was worth $1,200 in 1970. And there was a demand for them because there's so few around. Neither me or my dad knew anything about antiques or their values, I learned a little bit going down the road. But if he hadn't given that to me, and I hadn't made such a big ordeal getting it, and we probably wouldn't have came down anyway, but if he had brought it down here, we could have made, and that was a lot of money back then, And even my mother, she had an old treadle sewing machine. That's actually, I learned how to sew on it. The treadle was use your feet to make it sew. It was a Singer. And that thing's worth about, I think somebody said, if they're in really good shape, they're worth about $8,000 now. I don't know what she did with it. She threw it away or sold it real cheap. I have no idea. But if she'd hung on to that and brought it down here, she'd have been sitting on a gold mine. But, we don't know these things because, we lack the foresight. And today, it's hard to say anything we grew up with is actually worth anything, I understand that G.I. Joes that are still in the box, like that's going to happen, are actually worth quite a bit of money. But, if you had a G.I. Joe as a kid, I did not because we weren't allowed to have them. My mother called them dolls and boys didn't play with dolls. I was forbidden from having one. But if you did have one, well, you weren't going to keep it in a damn box. You were going to take it out of the box and play with it. And the box wound up in the garbage. So, I don't know. Let's see here. What am I missing here? 007 attaché case and metal lunch boxes. That's true. The lunch boxes are worth some money. I had a lunch box for a long time up north, as a kid in grade school because that was common, Mom would make a box lunch and that's what you took to school with you. And they had all kinds of cool ones, Munsters and Addams Family and Gilligan's Island, all the TV shows. There was a lunchbox that had something to do with it, Gerald says, my first HO train set I bought for my son's second Christmas. I still have it, a Tyco Clementine steamer. Oh, that's cool. I bought my son on his second Christmas. I can't remember who made it. It might have been Tyco. It was the it was a Magnatrax or something like that. It was HO, but it was like the high-speed rail that they got now, and it had a loop on it, and the train would go around the loop and not fall off, and it glowed in the dark, which was really cool. I bought that for my kid. I don't remember what I spent for it, but probably $30 something. It wasn't that expensive, but it was cool. And it was electric, you know. I'm pretty sure it was made by Tyco. And I don't know whatever happened to that either. So many things that we all had, and they're gone now, you know. Not they got tossed out or what. Nice, Gerald. You didn't have any trains before that? No, says Gerald. And Derek says, you would think Jana Stewart would have some cool toys. You would think. He said, no, grew up poor. Well, join the rest of us. We weren't really poor, but we weren't well off either, you know. My dad made a decent living as a painting contractor, but, you know, we didn't really want for anything. But we didn't have a lot of luxuries either, so, you know. I remember one Christmas, you know, we made our list of things we wanted. And I wanted a miniature color TV, a 13-inch, because, you know, I was watching a black and white one in the bedroom, and it was getting ready to take a dive anyway, so my mother said, well, I'll get you one, but that's the only toy you're going to get. All right, so, and that Christmas, that was the only thing I got. She bought me a used 13-inch color TV. And I was so happy you wouldn't believe it, you know. I don't know what she paid for it, but it worked. It was in good condition, but it was used. And I had that for many years, you know. Dave Nish says, I asked Jenny, she thought Chris Ham lost Depot, but not 100% sure. All right, so his last name might be Ham. Thanks for that, Dave. Joe says, my son was born in 77. Now, mine would have, because I didn't get married until 78, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah, 1978, and we got divorced in 88, exactly 10 years later. And my son was actually the third child. My daughters, April and Nova, were first and second. And then Terrell was next. And then, I'm getting bad. I can't remember my kids' names. Right? Murata was the fourth, my son. Terrell, unfortunately, was murdered by his wife. She was cheating on him, and it just went to hell after that. He found out and kind of, I don't think he attacked her or anything, but she threw him out of the house, and he got in his car and went down the road, fell asleep in the car, and never woke up again. They officially noted it as a suicide, but there were inconsistencies about, because I got to see the crime scene, you know, all the pics, the coroner pics and stuff. And ain't no way that was a suicide. So, but my son was a real deep sleeper. I mean, he could literally set off a bomb next to me, wouldn't wake up. And so I think she got in the car, because he had a 45. She grabbed his 45, shot him in the fucking head, and then placed a pistol neatly in his lap, underneath one, with the hand still on it, which would not have happened. 45, and it was a piece of shit 45 anyway. It would have flew out of his hand, because he would have died instantly, you know. And it was in one hand, his glasses were on top of him, and his left hand was on top of the glasses. You cannot fucking convince me that that was a suicide. I'm sorry. No fucking way, no how. And I knew it, you know. And I told her, I said, you ever come to Naples, I'll kill you myself. She never came back. Matter of fact, she's not even living in this country anymore. She moved to Europe somewhere. Apparently I wasn't the only one that wanted to kill her. A lot of people were mad, because my son was, you know, he was a real popular guy. And this all happened up in Ohio. And I told her, I said, you ever come down, I'll kill you. You know, and I would have. I'd have put a fucking bullet in her goddamn brain that fast. So it's a good thing she never came down here, because, you know, I would have wound up going to prison. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's see, Gerald says, my HO slot cars had a loop-to-loop track. Yeah, that was common with a lot of them things. I didn't have one. I had just your basic oval and figure 8. The figure 8 was cool, because the crossover in the middle. If you didn't time it right, you're going to, crash your cars into each other. It was fun. But, it is what it is. So, yeah, it was good times in a lot of ways, and then, some not so good times, but it's amazing what you can remember I remember so many insignificant things, and then there's some things that are important I can't remember. I guess that's old age kicking in, right? Derek says, I never had a loop, just a chicane and bank corners. Yeah, I had the bank corners too. I'm not sure what the chicane is, though. They said I had a figure eight and a loop. And of course, we started buying track pieces and then, making bigger layouts. Because I had set up on a table in my bedroom when I was a kid, a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Built the HO scale layout there, the cars. It was better than sitting on the floor, I had a lot of fun with those things, man. It's a shame that life isn't like that anymore, but, what are you going to do? So anyway, it's a little after 8:30. Maybe I should wrap this up before anything else breaks. Hopefully Saturday I'll start working on the P42 again. And like I said, I plan on, as a matter of fact, I even got my tripod camera set up. I had it over here to my right so you can see what I was doing. And I actually set it up there for because I was going to use it to watch the trains with. Except they aren't running tonight because, oh well. Let's see. Chicane was a squeeze track. Oh, okay, I remember those. Yeah, I had one of those. You had to be careful because, if you both came in, one or both cars were flying off. Depending upon how you had it. I didn't know it was called a chicane, but I did have that piece of track. Tom says, okay, guys, 2 more names to go. Does anyone know the real names of Pappy and Papa John? I swear I knew Pappy's real name, but I can't remember it to save my life. But it's so much easier just to call him Pappy, But so if anybody knows their names, you can put it up in the chat. I'll keep things going long enough for anybody that might have it. Papa John, I have no idea what his last name is. No. Yeah, I forgot about it. Chicane. How come I didn't know that? We probably had a different name for it. I don't remember. But I remember I had 2 sections of it because on the oval there was one on each side. So if you were running neck and neck, one or both of you were probably going to get flown off the track. And I remember that happened more often than not. Because I didn't know at the time that you could almost do like a pit maneuver, If you came up either right behind or right, not quite beside the car and hit him, you'd knock him off the track and you'd keep going. I didn't know enough about, driving skills at that point in time. So, that would have been cool though, I could get into those again, but I looked at them a few years ago. The HO scale slot cars. And they got really expensive. I think they had a small old, or maybe it was a figure 8. A figure 8 setup with 2 cars. And of course the controllers today, they kind of suck, The stuff we had was quality stuff. Now, they're these cheap plastic trigger controllers, and they're really garbage if you ask me. And I think they got something like, this was a few years ago, and I think they wanted like $70 for a small figure 8 and 2 cars. Cheap ass transformer and 2 controllers. I mean, it really looked, you know, kind of cheesy. Then Tom asked, how about this Phase F C8 Caw F? I don't know what the fuck that even is. What the hell is that, Tom? Am I even saying it right? Phase F Caw F? I don't know what the hell that is. That is somebody's name. Is it their track name? Channel name? Whatever. It could be. And this is why I think if people were smart, they would incorporate their name into their channel names. That's what Tom Grassi did. That's what I did. Derek did that. Dave Nitch did that. Gerald Stewart. A lot of you guys do it. But there's a few is out there that don't, you know. And that's cool. I understand. But, you know, it's easier if you keep your name in there. Jim, that's not a name. It's a saying. What the hell does it mean, though? I'd never heard that. I mean, oh, fuck off? That could be fuck off, right? Like with a Boston accent, you know, fuck off. Well, fuck F. I don't know how you'd say it, but I don't have a Boston accent. Am I hitting it on the head here or what? That's what it sounds like to me, of course. Oh, I got it. All right, see, so I figured it out. Face fuck off. What was the context you had in mind for that, though? That's my question. Yeah. Are you being facetious or what? Nah, it's kind of funny, though, when you think about it. I got a guy that I email back and forth, you know, friend from back when I was a teenager. We kind of, you know, rekindle our friendship, but from a distance. And I don't know if he's paranoid or what, but he won't say certain words on an email. Like when he says fuck, he spells it F-C-U-K instead of F-U-C-K. And I don't know what the hell difference it makes. Nobody gives a shit, you know. But he does that with a lot of different words. It's funny. He's not dyslexic or anything. He does it on purpose. Because I asked him about it once. He says, well, you can't be too careful. And I'm thinking, about what? Jim, I saw that the other day. Okay. I have no idea where you might have seen that, but who the hell knows? Probably on email or something, right? Or YouTube video. I don't know. Derek says, Thomas, are you making up your Christmas list? Maybe. And my wife asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I says, well, you can't afford what I want. And really, she can't, you know. Especially now with her eyes. I mean, I don't, you know, she probably won't get me anything. That's fine. You know, and I don't even have that much money to get her anything either, but I will get her something because, you know, I always do. Does anybody remember Corby and what happened to him? Oh, Corey. Yeah, I remember Corey. He just dropped off like so many others. I mean, a lot of guys, you know, they do that. I don't know if they get burned out. Oops, excuse me, get burned out or, you know, other things take priority or they just drop off and you never hear about them again for a while there, you know. They were big in either in the chats or doing videos. It is what it is, you know. I don't remember his last name, Um, yeah, I know, Dave, because Tom asked me about it. I said, well, I got his address, but it says the same thing, Pappy, and then his actual address, which is a P.O. box. And really, you can put anything you want for a name. You don't have to use your full name, because they don't look at that. They look at the address, and mostly the zip code. So, but when he visited here, he was actually here one year, and he told me his real name, but I don't remember it. And I never wrote it down anywhere because I just regard him as Pappy. He even had me make a pipe holder for him, smoking pipe, with the name Pappy on it, and that's what I did. I made it for him and gave it to him, but I don't remember. But it's funny. That's what he goes by, man. It's Pappy, Derek Alexander, Derek working on the Deshler group photo. Trying to get all the names of the guys in the photo, many I never met. Well, that's what I was telling them before, that you're doing mini-me's of them. And that's how you file them. But Pappy, you could just do Pappy and you know who he is, Unless, of course, you're going to try and mail him a mini-me. Well, even then, you can still mail him under the name Pappy and you have the address. If you don't have it, I have it. And I could give you the address if you want. Dave says he probably told me to. I said it's just, he goes by Pappy, so why would you, I mean, that's like his thing, man. So, I said I had a few of the names that Tom needed for some of the people, like Wilmer, I know his last name, and CSX Bob and his last name. And there's a couple, but some of them guys I didn't know either. And the only ones I really have full names and addresses on are people that either bought 3D stuff off me or people that I gave 3D stuff. So, everything. Anthony, Georgia Sunbelt Anthony, I got his last name because I have his address and all because I've sold him stuff. So, And I must have, well, as I said, I shipped the pipe to Pappy, the pipe holder. But when I asked for his address, that's what he gave me. And I figured, well, it must work because, Tom said both Pappy and Papa John must be hiding from the law, I guess. I don't think that's it. I think they just got used to it. I've had friends that had nicknames, and that's what they were known as. Of course, we knew their real names, but they never used their real names except on legal documents. But if you talked to them on the phone or saw them on the street, hey, whatever their name was, or whatever they called themselves, that's what you went by. So I don't really look at it as too suspicious, but hey, you never know. But I'll tell you, Pappy's a great guy. He was here one day. He came over, spent the day with us, him and his wife. And we had a good time, So, but I thought I had his real name here, and I don't. And he did tell it to me, but I couldn't even begin to guess what it is, Papa John, well, I've never really, had any dealings with him directly, so I have no idea. And I don't know if he's referring to the pizza or there's some other reason why he uses that moniker, but who knows, Or maybe he is hiding from the law. Who knows? Probably wouldn't be the first one. Probably won't be the last either. So, I don't know. Alright, guys, listen, it's 8:45. I'm going to wrap this up. I've had a long day. Went through my share of bullshit. Gremlins and you name it. And I'm going to go home and relax and watch a little bit of TV, and I'm going to bed. And then tomorrow's another day, and, well, we'll see. I'll probably be back in here to work on Thomas Moore's Spike Man's Surprise. And hopefully get it finished. I might be able to finish it tomorrow and maybe get it in the mail. either tomorrow or Saturday, hopefully. We'll see. And I gotta wait till Saturday before I can do anything on the P-42. And then just go from there. And like I said, I'm gonna have to get into the main the master box or whatever you call it, pull the battery out of it and blow the memory so I can start over again, and I'm sure it'll be fine after that. Anyway, I'm gonna run. I don't know if I'm gonna do any overlays or not on the outlay, but I'm gonna run the outro, and thanks for hopping in here and hanging out with me, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget to watch Tom Grassi on Wednesdays. And I can never remember the damn name of his thing. He's on at 8 o'clock. And I don't have an email for Papa John either. If he happens to see this, Papa John, or maybe I'll catch you on another live stream. I need your email address, or at least your last name. We'll get that to Tom Grassi so he can assign that to the mini-me he's going to make of you. And same with Pappy. If Pappy, you happen to watch this, Cab Crew Wednesday. I always want to say Workshop Wednesday, and that's the other guy, Tom Kavitchak, Tom's Trades thing, because he does Workshop Wednesday, you do Cab Crew Wednesday, and I try and watch both of you, but I watched you this week. I watched him for an hour, because he comes on at 7, and I jumped over to you at 8. So, anyway. Make sure you watch Cab Crew Wednesday, 8 o'clock on Wednesdays. And Monday and Friday, if you're not doing anything else, you can watch John Kavitchak's Tom's Trains and Things. He does a lot of building of the wood structures. So if you're interested in that stuff, you might want to check him out. That's about the only two that and of course, you got James. He's also on Monday. And that's, what's James' channel name? I can't even remember that. He comes on, I believe, at 7 or 8. I was watching him for a while too, but you guys are overlapping each other. It's making it tough to watch. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Here's the outro. We'll see y'all next week. Good night, everybody.